and reality, we come to the conclusion that God probably exists. In other words, if your hypothesis is supported, then that does affect radically the way we live our lives. Our next question would be, what does God want? And then we'd try to find out the answer to that, and then we would probably try to do what God wants. Because you've already said God is all-knowing, all-powerful, and perfectly good. And if we found that such a being does exist, then it just seems to flow naturally that we want to know what he wants and how to comply with what he wants. But you're putting the cart before the horse. It can't be the most important question. There has to be another question before that that's more important. What is true? What is true about the universe? And then we might, and within that broad category, then we begin to consider hypotheses about the nature of reality. And, one question we would want to answer is, what is the origin of human beings? That would be a second question I would ask. After I ask what is true, then I would say, what is the origin of human beings, and see where that goes.
Okay. I kind of still think that, I think so. This question is important because when people make their priority, how they should spend their time, what they should start with first. And I think it's really, that in this regard is very important to know whether, the question of God is just, as important for believer, or is something actually important for any rational being. So to me, that when we truly understand the implication of finding the answer to this question, and I think it's for me, it seems like it will become the most important question. And I can grant you and say, yes, knowing the truth is important. And perhaps we can even put it that one, knowing the truth is the most important question. I think we can go by this even. But the question is, which truth you want to know first? Then I will say that if you really want to know the truth, if really that's the most important thing for you, then I will say the truth about the existence or non-existence of God should be the most important question for you. So why? Because I think, as you mentioned, if you really think about the implication of the existence of God, if you think about what you will gain once you find such God, or what you should do once you understand the answer to this question, I think you will see that it seems like this is really key question you need to first answer, and then you can spend time on others. So that's why I remember that you once mentioned to me, you said that you you determined 5 most important questions for yourself in your life, and you said you retired earlier from your work, from your job, and you dedicated the rest of your life, or decided to dedicate the rest of your life to find the answer to those 5 key questions. And I kind of remember the very first question was, does God exist? So in this case, if it has such importance for you, don't you think that it should be really important for everyone, including theists and atheists?
Well, that question was certainly among my top 5 questions that I wanted to answer during my retirement. I don't know if at that time it was the most important of the 5. I don't know that I rank ordered them at that time. All that I remember saying is that it was in the top 5. But thinking about it in this way, there are people in the world now that have never heard of the concept of God. They have no concept of God at all. And it doesn't occur to them to ask the question, does God exist? Because there's no concept of God there. And yet, day to day, they are still operating with the question, what is true and what is false? So they're still trying to get through life answering questions about the nature of reality. In fact, a better question than what is true might be, what is the nature of reality? That might summarize it a little bit better. The God hypothesis is important to you and me because we've been exposed to the idea. We grew up in cultures where the God concept was prevalent. Most people, probably 90% of the people in the United States, are familiar with the God concept and have a position on it. Most of the people in Turkey, from where you come, also have heard of the God concept. But there are places, remote places in the world, where there is no God concept, and yet they go through life asking the question, what is the nature of reality? I think it's in the human mind naturally to seek the truth about the nature of reality. And I think we'll do that probably forever. So that's what I would say. I don't think we're in too much disagreement here. I think it's a matter of degree. You think, does God exist, is the most important question. I think it is an important question. I just wouldn't rank it at the top. And I'm not sure that we can come to a complete agreement on that. We might have to agree to disagree on its relative importance.
I still want to, push you further on that one to really, to kind of know that about the significance of this question. I think for some people, the reason I want to really discuss more, for some people, this God's question is just something belong to people of faith or something belong to those who want to really enjoy from debate. So, and that's why they kind of pick up this topic and discuss it. And sometimes even they think that, if you really talk about God, that you might be like, priest or you might be imam, But what I try to say that God's question is not only relevant and important for, religious people or for those who actually study religion as part of their profession. What I try to say that God's question is the most important one, because if God exists, that knowing the nature of reality is very much depend on your understanding of God. So for that purpose, I think that's really it's really important to know that that's really not a trivia question. That's really not a question that only theologians should discuss. That's really a question because it's, to me, it's like that you are on a death row, that you could be executed anytime, that if you know someone in a lawyer some way who can actually save you from the execution, and I think there should be no important question, other issue other than finding this lawyer. So in one way, finding God, if God is all good, if it's going to bring you eternity particularly. And I think there should be nothing more important than finding God. So at the same time, if you care about the truth and the reality, and I think to really know that the reality that we experience is something run by God, it should be very, very important, issue for us as well. So that's why what I try to know, that for you as an atheist in this regard, would you think that what will be your recommendation to your atheist friends when we come to the question of God? Should they really spend a serious time to seek the answer to this question, or should they just ignore the question and look for something else?